What's up, citizens of YouTube? My name is Mitch and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be learning all about how to increase the efficiency of your learning as well as your overall productivity with something called the Feynman technique. This is famously named after the incredibly intelligent physicist Richard Feynman, who won a Nobel Prize in 1965 for his work in quantum electrodynamics, as well as working on the atomic bomb, and also he helped pioneer quantum computing. Basically, he's a pretty smart dude. He was also known as a great explainer. He was able to deconstruct extraordinarily complex topics in the field of physics and explain them to virtually anybody. Essentially, the Feynman technique is a 4-step process which involves learning something by being able to explain it to an 8-year-old. As I mentioned, there are 4 steps and we will go through each step accordingly. First, take a piece of paper and write down the name of the concept that you're trying to learn. Step 2 is to write out or explain everything that you know about that topic already. When you're doing this process, take out all of the fancy schmancy difficult words to understand and replace them with simple terminology. Really break down each word and each concept so that an 8-year-old can understand what you're saying. Also, it's important to be as brief as possible without going into too much detail. Step 3 is to identify any problem areas or things that you can't easily explain and go back to the primary sources in order to look those things up and get better at explaining them. Step 4 is to essentially repeat steps 1 through 3 until you've mastered the subject. Step 4 is really important because it allows you to pinpoint certain topics that are very complicated, as well as figuring out where you need to grow and improve your knowledge base. It's always essential during the step 4 process in order to continually ask the why question. So why and how is this technique actually useful? Well, this technique is a great first step in reviewing any topic. It saves you a lot of time and it's extremely efficient. It exposes the flaws in your knowledge in certain areas that are weaker than others, and it allows you to see what knowledge you're already really solid on. It helps to retain information without putting a lot of effort into studying because you automatically attack the weakest points of your knowledge base. And essentially, you teach to learn. Mr. Feynman once famously said that I learned early enough the difference between knowing the name of something and actually knowing something. Putting this in practical terms, he discusses an example using birds. He says, even if you know the name of a specific bird in every single language, you still know absolutely nothing about that bird. So now that we have some of the basic concepts down, how does this technique work in real life? So since I've studied way too much in my life about human anatomy and the ins and outs of how the human body works, I'm going to choose an example of something like how the heart pumps blood through the body. So for step 1, I'll write down at the top of the page how the heart pumps blood through the body. Clearly, my writing skills have not improved since I was in 4th grade. I'm working on it, guys. I'm working on it. Step 2 is I'm gonna write down everything I know about this topic. So for this example, I would start with the heart. And some of the things that I could write down would be like, what are the 4 chambers of the heart? How does each chamber actually pump blood? What's the right direction of blood flow? And how do the chambers know to pump the blood in the right direction in the first place? Etc., etc. Another section of step 2 is simplifying the language. So for this example, I could say something like, the right ventricle squeezes blood through the pulmonic valve into the pulmonary arteries, where it then becomes oxygenated in the lungs. The blood then goes through the pulmonary veins back to the left atrium. This is a little bit of complex terminology, so breaking it down may look something like this. The right lower section of the heart shoots blood through the little tubes that are connected to the lungs. Within the lungs, the air that you breathe in becomes attached to the blood, and it is sent back through different tubes that are connected to the left side of the heart. Step 3 is reviewing the things that don't make a lot of sense and looking them up so they do make sense. For this example, maybe I know the direction of blood flow going from the right atrium to the right ventricle to the lungs, back to the left atrium, left ventricle, and then to the rest of the body, but I don't know why each specific atria will actually pump the blood when it's supposed to. And so for this example, maybe I need to look up the electrical activity of each of the atria so I know how the heart really knows to pump in coordination with one another. I can also look up some basic anatomy so I can understand why the blood doesn't flow backwards and it continues in the proper direction. And finally, step 4 is continuing to break down each of these concepts into simpler and simpler terms so that eventually I'll be able to explain the whole thing to an 8-year-old. Thanks for sticking with me to the end of this video. Let me know in the comments section down below if there's any other productivity hacks or tips and tricks that you'd like me to cover in the future. As always, guys, I will see you all on the next one.